Hello and welcome back to Reset. As you guys know, this is a podcast that takes all of the topics that are currently swirling around our group chats and brings in experts to get official opinions on them. This is a topic that I didn't think we were going to be discussing on Reset, but it just seems to be coming up a lot at the moment. We are going to be talking about male fertility, sperm health, and all of the things that you can proactively do as a male before trying to conceive. I couldn't think of anyone better to bring back into the studio to discuss this than my lovely friend, Grace. Grace, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, I'm going to link Grace's previous episode in the show notes. We talked about fertility on a whole and mainly female skewed, but this episode is for the guys. Mm-hmm. So Grace, for anyone who didn't get to meet her in our last episode, is a fertility nutritionist that specializes in helping couples create life, and her client results are just so beautiful. I love watching your Insta stories every week. There's just all these positive pregnancy tests coming through, and I know that typically the clients that come and work with you, maybe they've been trying to have a baby for a while, or like things haven't been kind of quote unquote smooth and perfect. So to get all of those positive results is just such a win. So I know that you're going to have plenty of helpful tips for us today. Grace, if someone has just tuned in and they're not sure if they should bother listening and learning about male fertility, can you tell me why it's so important to care about male sperm health? What does it actually do to your baby, to your partner? Like, why should people listen?
Yeah, really, really good question. If you are wanting to conceive and you want that pregnancy to be happy and healthy and you want to impact the baby's life, then you should definitely listen to it. We know obviously male factor is going to play a huge role on the ability to conceive, but poor male factor fertility does increase the risk of miscarriage. It is the man's genes that helps to build the placenta and also helps facilitate how that placenta will function, which is critical for how the pregnancy will develop. Things like preeclampsia are linked to male fertility too. And then you can even look at the health of the baby through their lifestyle, through their life as well. So, and then you can even look at things like the baby's health through their lifespan. And we know that the father's epigenetic factors in the months leading up to conception will impact their potential risk to developing diseases within their life as well.
Okay, so anyone who's wanting to show up as a great dad and a great partner should really be listening to this and taking this beautiful proactive approach. Okay, Let's dive into it. Let's start from the beginning though. Is sperm quality, sperm health essential for making a healthy baby? Can a guy just show up and do his thing? Like, why should we be caring about this?
It is absolutely essential. I mean, when you look at the statistics around infertility cases, 30% is going to be down to male factor alone, which is the same representation as female factor alone, and 50% is a combined female-male factor. So it is as important that we look at male fertility as female fertility. Obviously, it just doesn't get the same light as female fertility does, which obviously we're going to dive into today. If you look at the trajectory in which male fertility is declining, it is declining at an alarming rate. For the past 20 years, it's steadily declining. And so that's also a cause for concern of why potentially we're seeing more infertility cases compared to previously what we were seeing. And I think the second part to the conversation is that, so much focus is obviously on the ability to conceive, but we want the pregnancy to be viable, we want it to be healthy, we want the baby's life to be healthy, and that all plays a role, like male fertility all plays a role in those factors too. So it extends so much just beyond that conception phase.
Yeah, that's so interesting. How far in advance should we be preparing to have a baby in an ideal world?
In an ideal world, it would look like 3 to 6 months. maybe that 6-month period when you start thinking about it, you start making the initial changes. And then as you get closer to actively trying to conceive, it looks like it's a very well thought out plan of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to address, and really getting to those optimal levels of health to better support the fertility process and then obviously the outcome too.
If you had like a dream client glide path sort of thing, what would you recommend guys to be doing in that preparation? Like, are there some tests they should be doing to see what their health benchmark is? And then like, what are the lifestyle habits? Like, what should we be doing? Best case scenario.
Yeah, 100%. So a good blood check, which is not too far away from just like a yearly blood check that most people should be doing anyway. So really just taking those baseline health measures, really looking at their micronutrient levels, if there's anything going on within their body that they would need to specifically address within that time. And then really looking at their relationship with exercising and supporting that to support testosterone health, really leaning into that fertility-based diet, which we can dive into as well, but really just looking at, are we getting those key nutrients that are then going to support male fertility, support testosterone health? And then maybe in the 3 months prior, you would start taking your male fertility supplements. So you're in the best position to be able to kind of have a head start on it. Sperm regenerates every 72 to 80 days. So that period beforehand represents a really critical time that you can make these changes to better support the sperm that's going to be produced a couple of months later.
Interesting. How big of an impact does our lifestyle and nutrition have? And I say we, I mean for guys.
Yeah.
How much of an impact does that have on fertility?
It has a huge impact, right? Like, if you think about sperm, it's the production of what's going on within your body. And so all of your micronutrient levels, what your inflammatory markers are, what your testosterone health is, it's all going to have a really big impact onto then the quality of the sperm that's being produced. And absolutely, there are other factors that can go into someone's journey, especially if they're going through male infertility. There could be potentially, genetic reasons or chromosomal abnormalities why fertility is taking longer. There could be hormonal issues, but if it is a hormonal issue, if it is a testosterone issue, it is just the quality of sperm. Your diet, your lifestyle, what supplements you're going to take has a direct and a profound impact on the quality of sperm that's being produced.
Interesting. And I'm sure depending on that starting point, the kind of activities and food and nutrients that guys would need would vary. But are there a few key things that maybe all males should think about eating, exercising, moving? Like, are there a few kind of non-negotiables that everyone should consider?
There is. And I think for me, a large factor on what that is determined to be is by looking at testosterone health and supporting that. We want to make sure that, sleep is a conversation. A lot of men don't typically have enough sleep or enough good quality sleep. And, I think in today's world, it's kind of put off as this like luxury almost, where it is a necessity. And when you're looking at testosterone, we do want to make sure that we've got adequate sleep and quality sleep within that, which looks between like say 7 and 9 hours a night, person dependent. It is going to be supporting that micronutrient load to be able to support the production of sperm, of good quality sperm, and of testosterone as well. So making sure that we've got good quality zinc in the diet, we've got good quality proteins, we've got good quality fats to help make testosterone. We're having lots of anti-inflammatory foods. We know that a major cause of submale fertility is down to inflammation and oxidative stress. So part of the way to kind of support that is through having a anti-inflammatory, like a high antioxidant diet to be able to support those areas. And then looking at adequate exercise, which, is really a combination of walking or kind of not super intensive cardio workouts, along with like weight training, weightlifting, weight bearing exercise or resistance training. Getting adequate sunlight, so vitamin D levels are optimal. looking at exposure to environmental toxins, all of these are going to play a role.
And I know when we've spoken about female fertility in the past, stress can really impact from a female perspective. Does it impact guys as well?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you're kind of looking at for the same reasons, right? Like when we're going through higher periods of stress, typically we're going to see that elevated cortisol. And cortisol, testosterone, they're all made from the same building block. So your body's always going to prioritize making cortisol. It keeps us running and alive, but usually it has a knock-on effect onto testosterone health. And obviously we know as well when we're in our more stressful times, it's also not when we're able to look after ourselves to the same degree. And you start to see a lot of these other things that can impact male fertility, such as exercise, such as diet, such as sleep, being impacted as well.
Yeah. I know most people that listen to Reset are really high achievers. And when they set themselves a goal, whether it's career or fitness or whatever it might be, they'll run 1,000,000 miles an hour towards it and they'll smash that goal. So I think fertility should be treated in the same way. I don't know if it always is from a male perspective. So I think this conversation's really important to have. But why do you think as a society we're still putting so much pressure on ourselves as women? And I think even the traditional healthcare system is also putting that pressure on women to look at, well, why can't we conceive yet? Or what supplements are you taking? Or how do you sort of set yourself up for success to be the best potential breeding ground for a baby? Why are men still getting missed?
It's such a good question. And it's honestly something that I think about quite a lot because I'm constantly thinking, how can we change this narrative, right? I think it stems from many different factors. I think it stems from the fact that, you know, up until semi-recently, even within the medical world, you know, female subfertility or infertility, infertility, subfertility was always put down to the female side of it, where it's only kind of semi in the last, decade, 2 decades, there's more and more research around the true impact that male fertility does have on the whole fertility journey. Obviously, then that is more at a medical level. I think in a societal level, up until probably recently, there was also this kind of narrative that if a man was struggling to conceive, that it was because of, that their manhood and their testosterone, it was this and this. And there was so much, I guess, ego wrapped up in that conversation as well. And I think the way that this is kind of stemming through to where we are today is that the pitfalls that I find that most people are falling through is that, one, male fertility is just tested too late. So it's not until a couple's been trying to conceive for 12 months that they will even run a semen analysis, where I prefer to do it much earlier than that because we always take a preventative approach and a proactive approach, but it isn't run until later. And typically, even within that conversation, it's like, let's look at what's going on with the female first. And if we can't find anything, then we'll look at the male side, where we know that's obviously not the right approach to be able to support success within the journey or the health of the baby anyway. And then once the levels of testing do come back, they are incredibly low, what is deemed normal. Without getting into it too much, essentially these normal ranges change over time and they reflect the health of the population over time. They're not to say that this is a good level for fertility or a good level that is going to help you make a beautiful baby. They're saying actually you're within 95% of the population, which we know that there's a big difference between that and optimal health. And then even if something is kind of brought up as being on the lower side, which is very low, very little of the conversation is stemmed around, okay, well, how can someone support that improving? What are the next steps? What are the potential reasons why it could be lower? And what do we do about this number? It's almost like, this is what it is. So you're either in this category of it's low, which is very low, and this is what it is, or it's low, but you're inside the normal realm, and then this hallway pass is given where it's okay, well, let's chat around the female again and what's going on with them. So I think that is the main pitfalls that I see.
Yeah, that's so interesting and makes total sense when you explain it like that. And I think none of us would want to settle for being average in other areas of our lives. So it makes Yeah, it's kind of confusing why there's still so much complacency with wanting to show up and create life and not put your best foot forward.
It is interesting. And I would say that it's not just the fact that maybe this is the man's position on it. I would say that sometimes it is like this is the level of information that they're being given and therefore they're being told to be complacent, like they're told that it's okay. Where a lot of the men that I work with, you know, they are in it with their partners. They want it to happen, and also they're watching their partner go through incredibly invasive tests, you know, a lot of heartache along that journey, and they do want to be more involved. It's almost like they're not being supported to be able to do that.
What advice would you give to someone who's listening in as a male or as a female who has a partner that's a male and they do want to take that really proactive team approach from the start? I know you said start planning maybe 6 months in advance, 3 months in advance at a minimum. If they're going to their GP and asking for certain tests and they're saying, don't worry about it, we don't test guys for 12 months, that sort of very traditional backwards approach, should they be looking for additional support? Should they be speaking to someone else? How do they go about that rather than just accepting that is the norm?
I mean, to begin with, that is the same approach that females have to go through.
Right.
So it is that push of, you know, it has to be very self-led, like the same way a woman would have to approach this as well. But it is running the same baseline testing, which, you know, everyone should be getting at a yearly basis anyway, like maybe not the hormonal panel, maybe not your semen analysis, but just your baseline health. Everyone should be checking on a yearly basis. And then it is being there through the entire process, you know, making the dietary changes, like walking into it with the right attitude of, I want to optimize my health as much as possible, like looking at the ways that you can support your lifestyle to be able to facilitate this, you know, looking at implementing exercise, like getting good quality sleep, like working on your health. And then if you are, I mean, as I said, I prefer to test through semen analysis after around 6 months of trying to conceive. And if your doctor isn't willing to do that, which often there can be flexibility around that, it's potentially looking at doing it privately as well. But taking the same approach that women do, where it is about like optimizing your health, and to a degree, there's no end step to that, right? Like we're constantly striving to be the best. We're constantly striving to be the healthiest and the happiest versions of us. And so we take the same approach with male fertility too.
Yeah, I love that. What role do drugs and alcohol play on male fertility?
Yeah, they do play a big role on it. I mean, obviously, right? Like they are detrimental to our health. They do impact many different factors. And it's the same with male fertility as well. So they can drive inflammation. They can impact or increase oxidative stress and damage, which, you know, as we kind of spoke about, is a major factor for sub-male fertility. And obviously, if someone's kind of partaking in those activities, again, the other ways in which they care for themselves is generally reduced as well. So generally you see like diet changes happening, you know, sleep quality going down, exercise going down, all of these different things.
Yeah. If anyone is looking for just like a quick takeaway checklist of what to do, I want to have a baby in the future, how can I be the best version of myself? What kind of takeaways do you want to leave them with today?
Yeah. I mean, I actually have a checklist that I can share with you that they can download just
amazing.
for free.
Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. That's
step you through it.
Summary. Yeah.
But it is going to be making sure that you're getting enough good quality proteins and fats so you can actually support testosterone being made. It is trying to do a couple of walks a couple of times a week, combined with some weight training, weightlifting exercise, getting good quality sleep, making sure that you're meeting your micronutrient needs, really decreasing to minimal alcohol and obviously no kind of smoking or drug use within that. And then just trying to reduce exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals as well.
And you mentioned right at the start that male fertility on a total population level is kind of decreasing over time. Do we know why?
Oh, there's so many different factors that would play into this. I think the change in lifestyle that we see or have seen in the last 20 years. So obviously lifestyle now is more sedentary, where before, men were getting out and it was more physical forms of work, I guess, would be increased alcohol, drug use, steroid use as well, overheating of the testicles. So even like underwear choices and how they've changed over the last however long, just a decrease in overall health. Yeah, saunas, many different factors. Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting. And so I think for anyone who does go through the tests and does find that maybe their sperm health is not optimal, I think that's a nice thing to kind of close this out with, that it's okay. Like it doesn't demasculate you. It is something that unfortunately is becoming more and more common, but there are things that we can do about it, which is really the key message, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes it's just like switching the narrative a little bit from into like, this is a problem, and more of around that proactive approach of actually, this is something that I can really make changes to better support. And as I said, because sperm regenerates every 72 to 80 days, like that is a beautiful window of opportunity to change and say, I'm going to be a little bit more committed to my health. I'm going to go back to those foundations. And if you've run a semen test before and it wasn't great, you get to run another one in 4 months' time and you can see those numbers increase. And that is so motivating.
Yeah.
So like you get to see that change and it's really tangible.
And to be honest, if you are consciously wanting to bring a baby into the world, to show up as your best self for 4 months, like you can do that.
100%, 100%. And I guess then we go back to the very start of the conversation of it's not just about conceiving. Like I get that that is the forefront of the conversation in everyone's mind, but male fertility has, the male fertility genes help to grow the placenta, which will then impact especially that first trimester development as well. There is an increased risk of miscarriage, which comes from male factor. Things like preeclampsia, also impacted by male fertility. And then the child's health through their life, their risk factor for developing diseases as well through their life, especially lifestyle impacted diseases, will be increased depending on male factor too.
Grace, thank you. It's always so insightful having you here on the couch with me. And I think people are going to go away learning a lot today. If anyone's looking for tailored advice and wants to work with you on their fertility journey, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, definitely. So best place to reach me is probably just through Instagram, which I'm sure you can share that as well. But just reach out. I love a conversation, but just let me know where you're at with everything and then we can chat through what those next steps could look like.
Beautiful. Grace, thank you again.
Perfect. Thank you so much.